Bill Belichick has just signed a 5-year deal worth $50 million to be the next head coach of the North Carolina Tar Heels. The man who many consider to be the greatest coach in NFL history will be taking his first job in college football at the age of 72. Now, around this time last year, Bill Belichick was rumored to be in the running for the Atlanta Falcons head coaching position. However, after being turned away from the Falcons, he felt really dismissed by the NFL. So as a way to get back at them, he decided to dip his toes in college football. Now, Bill Belichick has always said that he's wanted to coach in college football. However, the timing hasn't really worked out for him, and the next thing you know, he was stuck as the head coach and GM of a dynasty for over 20 years. But now that Bill Belichick's time in New England is done and over with, he plans to return to where his love for football truly began, and that's in North Carolina. You see, Belichick's father Steve served as an assistant coach to the Tar Heels from 1953 to 1955. In fact, Bill spent all of his formative years surrounded by college football, and that's thanks to his father being a college football coach for 40 plus years. And now that Bill Belichick finally has time to return to Chapel Hill, he plans to build the program from the bottom up and turn them into one of the most dominant teams in the country. And I think it's fair to say that the Tar Heels haven't had any real consistent success since the 90s. And even in the 90s, the Tar Heels weren't known as a great football school. It was only a couple of years thanks to Mac Brown. And now that Bill Belichick is going to be the head coach of North Carolina, I think that the Tar Heels are about to head into their best era of football ever. And I think it also helps that Belichick is bringing Michael Lombardi along with him. You see, Michael Lombardi is coming out of retirement and out of the media to be the general manager of the North Carolina Tar Heels. And I think that with NIL money taking over the sport, what better way to handle that situation than to bring in a former NFL GM? Lombardi has had to deal with the money side of football players for years now, and he's done it at the highest level. And this man is no scrub. He worked his way up from being the recruiting coordinator for UNLV in the 80s to then becoming an NFL scout in the late 80s to then being the director of pro personnel in the 90s and eventually becoming an NFL GM. In his time in the NFL, he ended up being a 3-time Super Bowl champion, one with the 49ers, and then he was able to grab 2 more while working under Bill Belichick at New England. So this duo has had plenty of success together, and it only makes sense that they reunite now. I don't think many things would have pulled Lombardi out of retirement, but joining his buddy in North Carolina to dominate college football is certainly one of those things. And we'll talk more about North Carolina football in a second, but for right now, I just wanted to remind you guys to slow down, like the video, and subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 5,000 subscribers. Each subscription is greatly appreciated, and I would do anything if you subscribe. Alright, now let's get back to North Carolina. You see, I really want to look at their most recent years of football, especially under Mac Brown, to see what Bill Belichick is working with here. Because it's not like Bill Belichick is inheriting the most prosperous of situations here. You see, just this season, the Tar Heels went out and had a record of 6-6. And in conference, their record was 3-5 in a very weak ACC. And while the Tar Heels did do good in most of their out-of-conference games, they struggled against the Sun Belt school. In fact, they got their asses handed to them by James Madison, who at home was able to put up 70 points at Chapel Hill on the Tar Heels defense. That loss was truly embarrassing, and I think was a major reason as to why Mac Brown got let go. Because if you're going to allow James Madison to put up 70 points, you don't stand a chance in the ACC. And while a majority of the Tar Heels' losses in the ACC were pretty close, if you're not able to win close games, you will most definitely not be able to compete in conference or contend for a college football playoff spot, even with the new expansions. Now, it's not like the Tar Heels have had zero recent success at all. In fact, the 2 years prior, the Tar Heels had winning records, but that was mostly due to their quarterback play. In fact, anytime the Tar Heels are good, it's simply because they have a great quarterback. And for those 2 years, it was Drake May, who ended up winning ACC Player of the Year. He was so good that he got picked in the first round in the NFL by the New England Patriots. So you see there's a bit of a cycle going on here. But Drake May was a stud for North Carolina. In fact, North Carolina has been seen as a bit of a quarterback factory, because before Drake May, there was Mitchell Trubisky, and in Mitchell Trubisky's 3 seasons with North Carolina, Well, they fared pretty well, especially to years where North Carolina didn't have a quarterback. I mean, Mitchell Trubisky ended up going, top 3 in his draft? And that's because he played well at North Carolina. Something about the water in Chapel Hill produces great QBs from time to time, great college QBs, because we don't know how Drake May is going to pan out, and Mitchell Trubisky definitely isn't a success story in the NFL. But with that being said, Michael Lombardi made it very clear on the Pat McAfee show that him and Bill Belichick's plan is to bring in a great quarterback. That is step number 1 here, because without a great quarterback, there's no real team. And so with this being their first season, there's a high likelihood that they pull from the transfer portal while also, getting some recruits from high school. And with their better recruits sitting for about a year or two, we'll probably see a transfer portal quarterback as the lead in North Carolina for the first 2 seasons in the Bill Belichick regime. But that doesn't mean that the team is going to be bad. In fact, I think recruiting and getting players from the transfer portal is going to be pretty easy when you got a guy like Bill Belichick as your head coach. Guys are going to want to come and play for Bill Belichick because they know that Bill Belichick can get them ready for the NFL. They know that Bill Belichick can get them to the NFL. And while the NIL money might be nice for some of these players in the short term, for a majority of these guys, they don't plan to finish playing football at the end of their collegiate career. They have hopes and dreams of getting into the NFL. If you're good enough to play in a Power 4 conference, you'd be lying if you'd said that the NFL wasn't your number 1 priority. And there is no better coach in college football that can better help your odds of not only getting into the NFL but succeeding in the NFL than Bill Belichick. And I don't think I need to go out and list all of his accolades or go into too much of a description about why Bill Belichick is qualified enough to get you into the NFL. But if you somehow don't have any idea about what Bill Belichick's accomplished up to this point, well, to give you a brief summary, this man is a 6-time Super Bowl champion, got them all as a head coach / GM during his time with the New England Patriots. He also ended up walking away from the game as a 3-time AP Coach of the Year, 3-time PFWA Coach of the Year, and 2-time SN Coach of the Year, along with an Executive of the Year award later towards the tail end of his career. The only thing Bill Belichick ever did in New England was win, because during his 24 years with the Patriots, he had a 19-season streak where the Patriots had a winning record. And that streak only ended because Tom Brady got old and retired, but also because how long can a dynasty truly last? I mean, in those 24 years, Bill Belichick had 4 losing seasons. He has more Super Bowls than he does losing seasons. He also played a large role in helping the Patriots go undefeated for the entirety of a regular season, something that's only ever occurred in 2 other instances. Bill Belichick's coaching style is unmatched, and I don't think anybody will even come close to the same amount of success that Belichick saw in his career. Now, no one is more excited than I am at the idea of Belichick returning to coaching, except for maybe his son, who is now in line to become the next head coach of North Carolina when Belichick steps down. And I think the fact that North Carolina guaranteed that to Bill is one of the reasons he agreed to be their head coach. But anyway, that's a story for another day. I think I've said everything I've wanted to, so we're going to call it here. Catch y'all later. Much love. Deuces.